England. We were only speaking French. We moved to Rockport, and within 2-3 months, we stopped speaking any French. It was like, that's it. We stopped wanting to, you know, play any music. We stopped wanting to like read poetry or whatever. We stopped, just no interest in anything after just a couple of months. And this scared her so much. She was so shocked. She's like, this, you know, I can't do this. We can't put them in public schools, which is where my brother and sister were going. And just that alone made her decide. She talked to they had some friends out in California. They had a big discussion. This guy suggested that they just start their own school. She was like, you know what, that's a good idea. You know, so it wasn't really that planned out or anything. It wasn't this long time dream of hers. It just was because she didn't want her kids to lose everything that she thought that she was going to be able to give them, and that they were getting a little bit in France, but they weren't getting here. I said to her, Mom, you must be like, you're a superwoman, because I just don't understand how you created this whole school. You were you were younger than I am now. And not only were you raising 4 kids, but you created a school. You had all these other kids coming. You had to like teach all day. You had to do the homework. I mean, follow up on the homework. You had to clean the whole, can you imagine cleaning the whole campus? Or she'd go around with a vacuum cleaner and clean all the buildings, maintain the yard, take kids on field trips. And then we had boarders at one time too, so she was cooking for like 12 other kids besides us. And I'm like, Mom, how did you do it? She would regularly like make a bunch of crepes on that thing. She'd fire it up and make crepes for the whole school. I don't know how she did it, but she'd have all her frying pans going and everything, or she'd like bake bread in there for the whole school.
The story that I remember about your dad on a trip, we would often go to Boston. He would drive a van into Boston, and we'd go to the theater, or we'd go to some musical performance, or we'd go to something. And what I really remember is when he would take either Rocinante or the van, and he would drive and read out loud to us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. At the same time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he'd have something open on the steering wheel while he was driving.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, nice big steering wheel so we can put the book right out there.
Yep. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Moby Dick or the New York Times or something. A cup of coffee.
Yep.
But he did this the whole way to California too. And we did this every time he drove.
Yeah.
It was like incredible, really.
I mean, I love the insanity of Philip and Jose. There was a day I remember extremely distinctly. It must have been '84 when Philip got together and said, basically, I'm closing the school down because we don't have a good sense of community anymore, and that's all I care about.
One, Philip came in, he certainly had a vision, right? But he had a very communal vision that he wanted everyone to be a part of, right? And that you had to create this school all the time. Like, one thing though that was, that when I look back on wearing, and I feel more so now, and especially when I think back, you know, you're saying that about your dad, is I think Philip was all the teachers were extremely interested in learning as much from the kids, and they felt that they had as much to learn from the kids as the kids had to learn from them.
But why it was so impactful is like somebody was challenging us with big ideas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, like when I was 12 years old, like, I mean, the other totally crazy days were when Philip would say, the teachers aren't coming to school together because there are no teachers here, we're all learners, so just teach yourself.
But I think more than anything, it was the style of class. Just being able to talk to people in a way where it's casual, you're expected to learn together.
I sat in a humanities class with Jim, and just remember thinking like, oh my goodness, like these students are really smart, really intense discussion, and they're reading the Bible, and I don't even know what's going on. Oh my goodness, like this could be a place where I feel really excited to come to school every day. I feel like when I was there, it was almost like you went to camp, like it had like a very camp feel.
Well, it seemed unlike any school I'd been in before, because I went to public school up until then. And even just walking on the campus, like I couldn't believe it was a school.
Like, I'd say the first few months I was wearing, it's just like, what, you know, like, what am I doing here? Like, this is this weird little place, they only speak French, my class is so small. I didn't really know what was going on, couldn't like wrap my head around like how cool it was.
I'll go for the school tour that they offer just to check it out, and I fell in love with wearing, and I couldn't believe that that was school and what school should look like, but everybody was just so friendly and welcoming.
And I think the minute I set foot on the campus, I said, I want to go to school here.
I'm trying to think. I remember the Grand Salle and how different it seemed from a normal classroom, and then I also have a very clear memory of the goat, because that was something that was there when I first toured the school. I thought it was a pretty wild place, and when I was there were still, when I was visiting, there were still farm animals kind of running around. It seemed a little chaotic, but also really interesting. People were always working on something different.
I don't know if it was the Smicks or the Waring's snake that they used to, he used to like get warmed up in the oven, and someone cooked him once because they didn't know that there was a snake in the oven, because they like to like be in there to get warm, and like someone like turned the oven on to preheat it, and they ended up cooking the snake.
A year or two later, it was there was like a nature walk. A new student named Adam ate a mushroom, and they were on a plant identifying trip. And he ate the mushroom, and about 5 minutes later, he was dared to, one of his friends looked it up in a book, and it was called the Destroyer Angel. And it was a deadly poisonous mushroom, and he was airlifted by helicopter out of the camp and brought to a hospital, and he got better, but he was at risk of dying for a little while.
Though I did have secret parties at night here in this building all the time.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Secret parties?
My whole senior year.
With who?
Oh my goodness. So all of my class,
No
and then
way.
Jessica and Isla and Beth.
Did you know about this?
I don't think I should say.
And we would call up and say, gay party, and yeah, this is the benefits of having the keys.
Yeah.
And as long as...
What kinds of parties? What are you talking about?
Well, we sat around, read poetry.
And read, yeah.
Did some art.
That's where you discuss the great
That's
poetry. That's where we discussed,
absolutely.
yes. Yeah, we recited some French haikus.
And he once fastened his belt to the flagpole on the Waring campus and tried to actually scale the flagpole and get to the top until he was stopped by some of the faculty members.
Championships that I remember that were amazing, that actually are my favorite part of Waring, were the long ones that we took. You know, the one I remember was that trip where we broke down in the bus. We broke down in Texas, and were there for 5 weeks waiting for the bus to get fixed. And the whole trip itself, from Rockport actually to San Francisco and back, took 3 months. 3 months.
But traveling with Waring is an excellent exercise in giving over to whatever the universe is going to bring you in a way that I think is really magical and a really important skill. And super fun while you're doing it, even though sometimes you're hungry and tired and you've been walking all day. But like, when the end of the day, you've just like had so many encounters. And those encounters are like both physical and with real people and with your peers and with texts and with art objects. You know, it's just, you've encountered so much because it's like a different way of being.
Definitely. It's kind of like forced bonding, like when you're in a place where you don't necessarily speak the language or don't really know your way around, and you're with 25 other people who are in the same situation. You like really bond and get to know each other.
We all got on this bus, we threw our bikes on top of the bus, and off we were. You know, my parents took all these kids for 3 months, and we had such a good time. And it's probably, not only it probably isn't my favorite experience of Waring, but it's probably like my favorite life experience. If I could just pick like one time in my life that I would want to hold on to and forget about everything else, it would be that.
When we were supposed to go to Angers, it was September 11th, the year of September 11th, and our trip to Angers got canceled. And so we went to Martinique instead. And I remember being on the plane to Martinique and saying, this is it. This is where my traveling life begins. I feel like I discovered all of my passions there. I high school and that sort of time of life is when you discover who you are.
I would say that I definitely did more homework at Waring than I did in college. So lots of homework for sure.
You know, the kind of like workload that you had in college was like light compared to what the workload is you have junior and senior year at Waring. You know, so like that was, there are people that like when I got to college would like freak out that they had to like read a book in a week and like write a response to it. And I was like, this is like what we would do normally at Waring. I couldn't have asked for a better preparation for college.
I felt very strongly about going to a place that a liberal arts college that had a little of everything. I wanted to meet students who were studying something besides art.
So I did freshman year, and then I took 2 years off when I did a bunch of different stuff. Then I went back for another year, and then I started working here. So after the first year, I worked for the Obama campaign. I went to India. I went to France back to stay with my host family and do sort of, I volunteered in like a soup kitchen. And then I also worked for Oxfam America in Boston. I was doing a lot of things that sort of connected me with Waring in a way.
And Tim Backlund, I did an Endterm with him in 9th grade that sort of set me on a career trajectory. He sort of opened up my eyes to film and film editing.
This is my first job after college. I guess I was on like a short-term digital history grant over the summer. And so my first job is now, and I am the exhibits assistant at the Museum of Science.
Right now, I'm a captain in the United States Army.
Oh, I was an English teacher in South Korea.
So now I am an epidemiologist at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. So, and I work in the pulmonary and critical care division of the School of Medicine.
For me, one of the areas that Waring definitely helped me, I never ever would have had the confidence to travel on my own abroad.
I actually started this business as I was graduating. So a friend of mine and I went into business together, and he was at UMass studying agriculture, so he got out in March to do an internship. So his internship in my fresh out of college job was starting a farm.
I'm an analyst. I work at a think tank.
Then led to my first real job after college, which I had for a number of years as a radio producer and reporter. I'm a writer. I'm a novelist and an essayist, and I teach writing as well. I've been teaching at Brown for the last couple years.
I'm a judge advocate, which is a military attorney. I'm currently rewriting the criminal code. I was an Army aviator. I flew helicopters, the OH-58 Delta Kiowa Warrior. I deployed to Germany. In Germany, went to Kosovo and flew along the Serbian border doing reconnaissance patrols.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like what my family's done and like who I'm married to, it's just like it's impossible that I am not super Waring oriented. Like all of my best friends are from Waring. My brother went there, my mom worked there, wife went there, wife's sister went there.
I mean, it's a little different for me because even before Waring existed, you know, it was just like in the house, in my parents' house. So I was drawing probably since the age of 4, and you know, speaking French, of course, and writing in my journal, and playing music. So those were the things that were always there.
And then also French I use all the time. I just recently translated a French play by Molière that was performed here at Yale. So in that way, and that's a very direct way in which the skills that I developed at Waring I continue to use in my life.
You know, Waring is a lot about your teachers telling you what a responsible adult needs to know, or sort of a background. And after a while, you have this toolkit of ideas that you're given, and then you got to just go do something with it. And so I was ready to go test out some of my ideas.
I think wearing really encourages you to like follow your passion regardless of how much money you're gonna make. In college, I feel like I wasn't exposed to this as much at wearing, but in college I met a lot of kids who were kind of just studying something because they knew that they were gonna make a lot of money by doing it. And I think that wearing kind of encourages you to do the opposite.
And wearing still I hold up as the ideal for like how you should approach an education and how you should approach school.
So when I graduated, I started to teach at Salem High School. And I taught 9th grade literacy and 10th grade English. I think a lot about how could I make schools more like wearing.
So I think one of the big components of wearing that stayed with me is the creativity portion. I mean, they focus so much on the arts, all the arts classes, the drama classes, music, everything like that. I think while directly it doesn't apply to my job, I mean, I'm not doing a whole lot of art per se in the military, but I think some of the creative tools that you learn from some of those definitely apply to the outside world in any capacity.
And actually, now that I have my own kid and another one, I'm thinking more about kind of what I want to provide in terms of education, and it's the things I would be looking for are the things that wearing offered me. It was fundamental, I think, to how I am now, was the experience I had there.
No, it's definitely skills that can be used no matter which direction you turn, you know, and whatever path you end up going down in college and then in life after college, that the ability to speak and communicate and listen and interact with people and put your feelings and thoughts down on paper are just such important skills that so few people have. It's unbelievable. It's having hired a lot of people over many years. It's remarkable how few people can do those things, and they graduate from good colleges. They go to good high schools. They you know, they're brought up in educational environments that most people I think would be very happy to put their kids in, and yet none of those things get translated out into the end product of a person.
I think that if I hadn't been at wearing, where you have to learn to speak up in rooms where, you know, even when you don't want to, I might not speak as much as I do. I think learning to have the courage to say uncomfortable things in rooms with lots of people is something that wearing taught me. And
wearing has so many blessings that come along with it, and I'm really glad I went there.
I mean, and like most, for me, at least with my particular memory, it's not as much sort of the things I learned, but the way in which I learned to learn, you know, making clear that learning was as much about the process itself and the journey rather than sort of a product.
And when I look at the buildings, they've all changed, but they still retain some of their character, and I really appreciate being able to come through. Kai and I were talking about this before, and just being able to see this ghost of, what was there, a caricature or some film of what it was before, and I really like that.
But the myth was that it was a function of the size that made wearing as good as it was, and I don't think that's true. I do think there's something to be said for having a school that is, by and large, or on average, smaller than other ones, but I don't think it matters if you go above a certain metric. I don't think that makes any difference.
Yeah, actually, I've read a few articles where they say that, like, a good natural size of a group of people to all do something together is about 150, because that's a good amount of people so that they can all, so they all sort of know each other, you know, and that you know, tribes of that size are very stable. So yeah, I did like it. I mean, I didn't know all that stuff then, but I did like the size of the school at that time.
It seems like the size of the student body right now seems like it's healthier in a way for the students, so you have more interactions with other people. It's a reasonable amount for the school to stay at and not really sort of need to have this huge increase in enrollment.
When I was there, the humanities and arts and writing programs were incredibly strong, and the math and science programs were very, very weak. It was very lopsided.
Made great improvements, and we're seeing a lot of kids, not just to liberal arts schools, but a lot of kids are going to sort of science-focused schools, engineering programs, things like that. So it sounds like that has really come a long way.
But at the same time, thank God they've changed, right? Think of ahead. This is what we were talking about, the three of us just earlier, about things changing and things moving on, because schools have to change, right? They are living institutions, they're breathing, they all reflect who you are. All of you are different from who we were, and so the school is different every year, right? And so thank God it looks different and it's being changed constantly. And how do you marry needing to constantly reinvent yourself while also maintaining who you are? And I think Waring has always thought about that and always tried hard to do that.
I'm young and only beginning.